Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to yet another podcast from the Strategy Guys. As you may be aware, we've kind of been gone for a while, 6-ish months for you guys, but only 2 days for us as we travel directly into the future so that we can review the games and bring them to you.
I don't feel like that's accurate.
That's not at all. Joining me today is our usual team, plus one, minus one. I'm the moderator, Greg. To my left,
it's Conrad.
Corn-fed.
Corn-fed.
To his left,
Ermagerd, it's Patrick.
and to his left,
Kyle, hi.
none other than Krebsky himself. We'll take a special moment to say hi to Black Stormy out there.
Hey,
Hey,
Stormy.
Stormy.
Stormy's
for
gone on to
stealing
do
your
bigger and better things. We just want to let him know that we miss him. Hopefully we'll be able to get him back on the show sometime in the near future. But Krebsky will be sitting in for us on this session, and we're super glad to have him.
Well, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
I do appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I feel like you could say it one more time.
One more time?
Yeah.
Nah.
I feel like you should thank me again.
I should, but I won't.
That's fair.
On today's show, we're going to be reviewing Resident Evil 6, and we'll also be talking about the new Bethesda hit, Dishonored. I guess we should go ahead and launch right in to the Resident Evil 6. It looks like Cornfed's booting it up as we speak. You got a particular chapter in mind, Conrad? I know you have played it the least out of all of us.
That's not true. I think I've played it just as little as he has.
That's right, but you don't. You played it out of revolt.
Yeah.
Conrad just hasn't had time to get caught up with it.
I won't get into that right now, but yeah.
For those of you that are unfamiliar with the Resident Evil series, we'll take a little time to fill you in. Resident Evil's been going on since PlayStation 1 days, back when they had big box PS1 games that were large and rectangular and impossible to store. It's a survival horror series, focuses on a government-branded group of people that are trained to go in and eliminate bio-organic threats, I guess, is as good as any. It's taken a lot of deviations from then. A lot of the characters have gone on to join other branches or fight different things. The series itself has evolved greatly over time, from the PS1 days right up to the 360. They stopped using zombies. They started using monsters. It's taken a lot of unusual turns. I know Krebsky said his favorite Resident Evil is 4. I think it's probably a safe bet to say that's universally the most.
It definitely should be.
Yeah, the most played, the most respected of the series. They did change a lot of the controls in 4 in a unbelievably necessary way. The old ones were all rotate and run.
Over the top, piss you off kind of puzzle games.
Yeah.
I feel like they've got unnecessarily clunky again.
Well, we'll get into that. Resident Evil 6, the newest one in the series, focuses on several of the characters from the Resident Evil mythology, all kind of doing their own thing, converging at once, crossing over, and then coming to one conclusion all together, more or less. Chris Redfield's in this one of the predominant characters. Leon Kennedy seems to be one of the most admired heroes of this series. We have, I don't even remember this guy's name. I just call him Wesker Jr. Jake
Is a fantastic character.
with a really crappy name. Yeah. Wesker Jr., much more appropriate. So, looks like Conrad has fired up some Leon Kennedy gameplay. Who wants to jump in and talk? Let's talk about the control scheme first. I feel like this one really plays off of 5 considerably. I know they changed some stuff, but overall, I think the control scheme feels almost the same as 5. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, it's very, very similar. I do like the over-the-shoulder, how they've done since 4. I don't like that over-the-top camera crap that they did previous to 4. I think that they've done a lot better with the interactivity of the worlds. Whenever you walk up to a door, like Leon will put his hand on the door frame, and it's more interactive, kind of like Uncharted, if you will.
Yeah, they've put a lot of focus on co-op in this one as well, which is the same way that 5 was. That's one of probably the biggest pros about this game is that it's tailor-made for 2 people. You can play online with someone. You can play split screen with someone. There's a lot of variations in the multiplayer. Like your second person is not going to have the exact same experience as your first person. Your characters are going to undergo changes. they're going to be different as a result. I mean, there are changes to the characters that are significant, and as a result, they play totally different. And that's kind of like Fear 3 has a really good co-op. I mean, maybe not the best of games, but both characters play completely different, and I think that it really helps make an original co-op when you're playing a game like Halo and everybody has 4-player split screen and every single character is the same. I do think it loses some of the charm of co-op. But in terms of controls, I mean, I thought it felt okay. I'm not saying it's not starting to show its age, because I think it is a little bit, but it's certainly come a long way from the old Resident Evil days where you had to spin around and rotate and interact with everything.
I feel like it still has a lot of those elements in it. And for the type of game that it is, I mean, they market it as a survival horror. It really feels like a third-person action game.
Yeah,
and everything in that feels way too quick for how clunky your character actually controls.
They did make this more of an action game rather than a survival horror. The only survival horror part is when you're kicked in with a bunch of action, you run out of ammo. That's the shittiest part because
it happens
very
frequently.
Half the time you're playing, you end up having to punch and kick your way out of a situation than just pull out a gun and shoot somebody.
But does that not also kind of breed its own sense of horror and survival?
No, it breeds more of me getting really pissed off.
I guess it's not that. Like, I don't mind that there's an emphasis on the melee, but like I started with Chris's campaign because he's my favorite character, and it felt like it was like a minimum of 50% me punching zombies' heads off or stomping them in the ground.
I feel like even the beginning of Jake's whole campaign is an intro video of him sitting there with the apple, and a zombie comes up to him, and while he's talking to him, he actually does melee on him. In the entire series, it's been the head is always the weakest part. You shoot the head, the zombie goes down. In this, he punches the zombie in the stomach. He hits its arms, shoulders, everything to affect the body of the zombie, and still manages to kill it. And I just think that's completely away from how they've always took their antagonists and their characters.
I think what that supports is that the zombies' brains are actually in their stomachs, and that's nobody knew that was their weakness until now.
They might have.
But no, you're right. I mean, honestly, it's even less coordinated than that. To do a melee kill, you just run up and you're just, and then they're dead. I mean, there's nothing. You're not specifying where you're hitting them, and also it kind of brings to the good point: if everybody can punch a zombie down, why are there even zombies? Like even 5-year-old girls could fight their way out of it if you can just punch, kick on them.
Well, I think if they're going to do a more not more of a melee based game, but if there's going to be more of a combat, and when you run out of ammo, there's more hand to hand stuff. Don't you think that you should at least get a combat knife or something to stab or?
You do.
Well, no. Half the time you're punching and kicking people. You have to manually switch to your combat knife, and it just becomes a big pain in the ass.
I just want to say that thing that you just brought up, that navigating point, is probably another one of my favorite things that this series has been missing. It's got that Dead Space vibe where you're just like, where do I need to go, for God's sake? Because Resident Evil is one of those games where you can get turned around in combat really, really easily. So that's another thing that they've added to the series for the first time that was just made it more accessible and easier to goof off with. I have a lot of mixed feelings about this game. I like that they're kind of getting back into the zombie part of it. I think that the monster part of it is an even bigger mistake. But on the flip side of that, they almost completely removed puzzles from this one, with the exception of a couple of really, really cake puzzles where it's just like, oh, I found a statue. This is the only place where there's a missing statue. I guess this is where it goes. Puzzle solved. So, and that goes back to you talking about survival horror. It's not a survival horror game. It doesn't, to me.
Any game of this particular genre, or any game in general, needs some sort of break from the thing that you're constantly doing to keep the game interesting. And I don't feel like really easy puzzles or just, punching a zombie is going to take you away from this is what this game is. You run around, you're out of ammo, you go to your waypoint, there's hordes of these zombies that aren't very smart or have particularly bad AI, and I don't know. It just felt like they had a certain vision for the gameplay, and they didn't see it through correctly.
I see all those are all valid points to me. Actually, I want to let Patrick talk for a little bit. Patrick is easily the most pro Resident Evil. I mean, everybody that knows Patrick in real life knows that he's a diehard Resident Evil fan. This is his thing. Tell me what it is about this one, Patrick, that you like above all of the other Resident Evils.
It's not necessarily that I like this Resident Evil more than any of the Resident Evils, but you have to go back and look at Resident Evil 1 and look at the gameplay style. Yes, it's more slow-paced. There's more puzzles. And it's naturally evolved into more fast-paced. If you look at the beginning, it's kind of the beginning of the zombie outbreak, and they're more or less doing investigation, which is not very action-packed. It is very slow, and as the zombie outbreak has taken over more and more, now you're getting to the part where you're fighting for survival. I mean, pardon me. It's not necessarily survival horror, but it's pretty much hit the fan at this point, and you don't really need to investigate now. More or less, it's just kill and survive.
I do like that they're kind of hearkening back to the Raccoon City era where there's like a whole outbreak and everything's kind of like going to shit and they're just trying to react to it. Because sometimes in a lot of games like this, they kind of pull back and you'll be like, oh, we got to save the town. And then you get to the end of the game and, oh, we saved the town. Everybody's safe. There's only 5 zombies made in the whole game. And these games are not like that. They just roll it right out immediately. And you're immediately fighting an entire city of civilians that have been turned. So I like that part of it as well. I thought the story overall was pretty standard Capcom fare. It was a little, I don't want to say science fiction-y, but it's always a little out there. Like
it's always extremely cheesy as far as the dialogue goes. They've never been able to make characters interact the way they ever would.
That is true. There's a really particular scenario where they show it in the trailer, and Chris and Leon are fighting, and it looks so great in the trailer. And then, at least from Chris's standpoint, when you get to the interaction, they just have like the corniest exchange. There's a part where he meets Wesker's son, Wesker Jr., whatever, I already forgot his name
Jake.
again. He's always going to be Wesker Jr. And then he's like, oh, I killed your dad. And Wesker Jr. like pulls his gun on him. He's like, rah! And then they just stand there for a second. They're like, okay, we're cool. Let's go fight zombies. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's too, and Chris always will have this really like almost patriotic type speeches, but they're just like the corniest ever where he's like, and then it just rallies everybody together.
But in saying that, every single game in this series has always had those dialogue riffs. They've always had a problem writing interaction between characters, and it's not particularly this game, it's this series in general.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Speaking of dialogue and like character interaction, it's not as bad as Resident Evil 4 when you have a co-op partner that's just like, Leon, help! But some of the people in this game are still just really stupid. The guy that I was just helping, he just stared at a wall for, I don't know, 15 seconds before he even tried to open the door. Not just, he wasn't staring at the door, he was just staring out the window, just not helping me at all. Yeah,
I mean, I would say that the AI in general, it's not, I wouldn't say it's a weak spot. There are some spotty elements, but overall, when you're writing programming for zombies, I mean, how difficult can it possibly be to make them just kind of lurch around?
One particular thing that I actually did like about it was, you said the co-op aspect. Whenever they had co-op available, whenever you'd start up the game, anybody that would jump in your game, you'd automatically be able to set up their options before you went into the campaign.
Yeah.
And one good thing was that you could give them infinite ammo. And I know that makes the game easier, but still when a player that's at a beginner level or is just not very skilled is eating up all your ammo, it makes the game a lot more rough on you. And for them to take that away, that does help out quite a bit.
I think they did do a little better with the computer AI co-op as far as weapon usage. Like, in Resident Evil 5, Sheva only used a pistol. You could give her a shotgun, you could give her a rocket launcher, you can give her anything, but she would always pull out the pistol unless you took the pistol away from her. I mean, they've done a lot better with this one. I mean, they use what is better for the situation in the game rather than, I guess, ammo saving.
Yeah, it's actually when I played through it, I felt like the lack of ammo was the kind of the last charge of survival horror that they forgot to fix, because they took out all the puzzles and they ramped up all the combat, and then they were like, remember how hard it used to be to get the ammo? That's the best part of Resident Evil, right? No, it's the worst part. It's always been the worst part. I just want to kill zombies. I don't need any technical things holding me back. But I mean, I don't know. I feel at odds. This is the kind of game that I'll pick it up and play it, and then I'll enjoy it. But very, very shortly after I start playing it, I get fed up with it. And every chapter is almost a minimum of an hour play. So if you play and you want to finish a chapter, you just kind of have to commit to it and sit down. And it just, I don't know. I don't want to put that much time into it. It feels like I get frustrated with it. You're seeing now on this stage that they did add some quick time events to this as well. I don't know if that's kind of cliche now, but I enjoyed them. But I'm a QuickTime expert. Like they can put it in any game, and I know I'll do good at it, so I'm okay with it. There's a part in the very beginning tutorial where they have a QuickTime event, and Leon has to like shoot a zombie out of the chopper. And I thought it was really, really good. That was actually the first time I started kind of gathering an opinion that they were ramping up all the action. It was getting more like Die Hard.
I did enjoy some of those, but there are parts. And this goes back to the inventory, and I don't understand why they got away from the cases. The cases were always fine. That wasn't the thing that they needed to fix. But there was a particular part that was a QuickTime event where I had to pull out my pistol and shoot an explosive to get through to the next part in the QuickTime event. And to do that, I had already been way out of ammo, so I had equipped my melee attacks. So I had to pick up ammo and then go into my inventory and equip my gun and then aim at the thing all within about a second and a half, maybe 2 seconds. I probably died on that particular part a good 20 times before I finally got through it. If they're going to do QuickTime events, they should actually equip you with what you need to be equipped with instead of making you go through all the process to get there. I understand what they were trying to do. They were trying to make it an impending type of thing and kind of a scenario where you need to act fast, but it was just so unnecessary, the amount of moves that I had to make to actually get to that part. It was annoying, not, I don't know.
You can kind of paint yourself into a corner with the ammo, too. They have they have a checkpoint system in this, which is great. They should have gone away with those typewriter ribbon shit. They should have gone away a long time ago.
I agree.
But you can get kind of checkpointed into a scenario where you're out of ammo and you don't have any items and you're just kind of playing the same scene over and over and over again. But I'm going to let that slide because that's not an uncommon thing to happen in games. I've been checkpointed into some real disaster spots before, or it didn't look like there was any way out, or you have to go back to an older spot. Very frustrating.
Patrick, as a big fan, do you have any cons about this game?
No, I mean, again, like what made me fall in love with the Resident Evil in the beginning was the puzzles, was the horror part of it, the bit of feeling helpless in a bad situation. That was always my draw on it. As it took over, Resident Evil 4 is really good. 5, it's okay. 6, it's also okay. For me, I would like for them to kind of maybe even reboot the series. I know a lot of other series are getting the reboot or being remade in HD or whatever. Which brings me to another point. To put a positive note on this, visually, I think it's stunning. The lighting effects are fantastic. The cinematics are I think they're spot on.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the best looking Resident Evil games.
The character models do look like they've had a huge upgrade.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Yeah. I would say this is one of the better looking Capcom games in general in terms of graphics engines.
The texturing is great. As soon as you loaded the thing up, I couldn't see any load where you'd see a particularly long point in a long view, and the further you would go, the more the screen had to load up. I never saw any of that. It seemed like whenever it actually loaded up, it was all there, and it all looked very crisp and good.
I think the environments and the lighting effects are gorgeous. I have no complaints with that.
It makes me feel like I'm in a Saw movie, or at least playing Leon's campaign. It's just really dark. There's like dingy yellows and some really dim orangish red colors. It looks like a horror game to me, so I will definitely say that Resident Evil 6 takes it in the graphics category.
I thought you're going somewhere else with that altogether.
No.
So we're all in agreement that the graphics look good. The controls I don't really have a complaint about. I know they're a little clunky and they can be kind of unresponsive, but overall I still feel like in the Resident Evil universe it's one of the better ones. We better press that button.
I was talking to Kyle earlier, and we were talking about how the aiming, like with the reticle, where the little laser dot bounces around to represent recoil. I think that's a really good touch. It might make it more difficult for less experienced gamers, but
it did feel more realistic. I mean, if you're aiming at a particular spot and you're actually shooting a weapon, there's no way you're going to hit that spot twice if you're just sitting there and pulling the trigger immediately.
There's an herb up the stairs.
One of the other things that's in this that hasn't been advertised very well is that in addition to the 2-player co-op, you can do 4-player online co-op in certain scenarios. So if, like, the stories that you're starting with, you have Leon's story, you have Chris's story, you have Wesker Jr.'s story. There's an unlockable 4th story for Ada Wong. And then at some point, these characters will meet each other in the story. And when you get to that point, you can go online and you can play a total of 4 people in co-op. And it's actually really, really cool. I would like to see more of that. Actually, I think an entire 4-player co-op campaign would have been really, really, really cool. But maybe not something that they could have done for this particular game. I will say another good thing about the game is that the length of the game is pretty generous for a shooter of this type.
Especially of this day and age. I mean, most games are, shooter games are 6 hours.
6 to 8 is your pretty much your average. But at an hour a chapter, 5 chapters or 4 chapters?
5.
5 chapters per character.
4 total campaigns.
Yeah,
8
I'm not saying you're going to clock in at 20 hours, but I'm saying you're going to play longer than the average game for sure. So that's good.
Too, with including the mercenaries, and there's unlockables in there as well.
Yeah.
So you're going to get well over 20 hours.
Also, the DLC that Capcom has already scheduled to release. I mean, I don't know when that's going to be, but that's probably going to put a generous amount of time in for at least an extra character or even mercenaries.
Look at that.
How back to the 4-player co-op thing. I understand that each particular genre will go to evolve, so you don't have the same game over and over and over and over. But with co-op in a survival horror, I've never felt like that was necessary at all. The things that made Resident Evil so good was because you felt so completely helpless and alone. You were the only person going up against all these odds. Same with Dead Space, same with Silent Hill. These games, they make you feel so alone. And I mean, it's even in Dark Souls and Demon Souls. Games that make you feel alone make you more impassioned to go with what's happening to your character.
The one thing that I do have to add about this, I love feeling like Chuck Norris and Jean-Claude Van Damme with these roundhouse kicks. That's probably the best part about not having ammo. You can just roundhouse kick a zombie and kick his head off.
I agree with what Kyle is saying, but don't you think that in this day and age that if you don't market a game with some sort of multiplayer experience, you're limiting the people that will buy it?
I understand that, but then you look back at Dead Space has sold really, really well. BioShock, that had no multiplayer whatsoever,
until the
sold
second one.
really, really well. Until the second one, which was not as good as the first, but we won't get into that.
Okay, but now look at that on a timeline. BioShock 2 added multiplayer. Dead Space 3 is adding co-op.
Last year, Skyrim.
I don't even want to.
No, I understand.
I don't want to
and Dark Souls always sells well. I understand why you'd say limited to that, but
don't get men at the door.
It would be nice if it was optional.
I get that. Well, it kind of is. I mean, you can have
kind of is, but
isn't an AI opponent that's still the same as playing by yourself?
Dealing with the AI is just something horrible.
Yeah. Well, I agree, but it's been worse. 5 had some pretty horrible AI control.
I agree with that.
Conrad, you don't look like you're doing so well, bud.
Well, I was excited because I pulled out 2 pistols, and then a zombie sat up, and then he just died on his own.
It wasn't a zombie that makes it a corpse.
Okay, so to kind of bring it all around, bring it back around center, I would definitely say that this is not a purchase. However, I think it is an experience that you really It's worth playing. It's worth a rental, or at a reduced price, certainly worth picking up.
Fanboys only.
If you're a big co-op person, I would definitely take a look at it. I mean, there's a lot of good things about the game. There's a lot of bad things about the game. Just you can't go into it expecting one of the old classics. They have tried to move the series forward. It is pretty obvious they're trying to appeal to a slightly different base of people. I don't know if it's the Call of Duty people or the SOCOM people but there's a lot more emphasis on running and gunning and fighting, less emphasis on puzzles and scares.
You Call of Duty people ruin everything.
That's easily 75% of our customer base is going to be Call of Duty people because they're everywhere. So you Call of Duty people keep right on doing whatever you're doing.
I know what I said.
Would you guys?
We're on getting on that boat, like as far as whether it's a buy or a rent or anything. I know I don't play nearly as many games as you guys do because I am particularly picky about what I play. And this game, it was so, I don't know, I just did not enjoy it. I wouldn't even spend the money to rent or buy.
Overall,
So you're saying don't play it ever?
I would advise against playing it.
I feel like that's too harsh, but
yeah, that's a little harsh.
Jeez, man.
I bought it. I think it was definitely worth a play. But then again, my favorite Resident Evil is still 4, but there were just so many.
Said every person ever.
Which I still don't understand why they took it to a different place. 4 was the perfect building block, and then they take it to 5, and it's completely changed.
Well, I don't know. I think it just comes down to they have to constantly feel the need to reinvent or relocate. I don't really feel like in terms of gameplay. I think 4 and 5 still feel very similar. Other than the implementation of the co-op, there is a lot of sunny environments in 5, but we're not reviewing 5. We're reviewing 6. So
I mean, it is a worldwide outbreak.
I think that
That's fair.
I think that it's definitely worth a play, whether you rent it or buy it. I bought it. I don't regret my purchase, but it's not the best. It's not the best game that I've ever paid for $60.
well, yeah, I don't think anybody's gonna go up and say that.
But it's definitely worth a play. It's more of a personal preference, but I don't like it as much as I could have liked it.
What would it take for you to like it more? Cornfed.
Probably new developer.
Well,
they're never gonna. Capcom's never gonna hand it off. It's just a matter.
But that would make me like it better.
As long as they learn their lesson from Operation Raccoon City.
I would like it better either if it was more of a survival horror game where they put more puzzles, where it was harder to find ammo, and the combat wasn't as highly focused as this game, or if they gave me more ammo and made it more of a zombie slayer game. They're two different things pushed into one.
Yeah, it definitely skates the line between a game like Left 4 Dead and a game like Dead Rising, for example. It doesn't favor either side of those. The last thing I wanted to really make a point is that if you did buy Operation Raccoon City and you were disappointed in it, because those two things go hand in hand.
They're definitely synonymous.
Don't base your opinion on Operation Raccoon City.
Don't hold that filthy game against this pretty decent one overall.
Well, I'll tell you, Patrick's final thought is: if you're a fanboy, definitely buy this. I enjoy every second of it. I have very little complaints about it. If you liked 4 or 5, you'll be entertained. I stand by it. I love it.
All right, well, there you have it. Resident Evil 6 available now at your local retailer. Bodyguard for a steampunky emperor. I don't even know how to explain it.
Do you know that he's young?
You know what? I don't actually.
He could be 80.
Dishonored is a story of a man
A human.
who bodyguards for a royal service. His name is Corvo, and
Nice name.
yeah, don't wear it out.
Corvo O'Donnell.
Corvo is tasked with upholding the general law of the town, and specifically, I suppose he's the bodyguard of the queen and princess of this realm.
Doesn't it start with him being away from the realm though? Like,
Well,
when
he's
coming
doing
back
like
to
a
it, so I don't really
mission
know what
or
he's
something. Yeah,
He's doing his job. Kyle.
Apparently, being a
He's
bodyguard
doing
from,
work.
from
He's
Legions
doing a side
away
job.
is a
He's
good
picking
thing.
up some extra money.
Okay, fair.
So Corvo is off on a mission, and he comes back, and it seems as though there's a sinister assassination plot that's unfolding before his eyes, and he is suckered into looking like the assassin himself, and so the rest of the, I don't know my fantasy political terms very well. The
Town?
No, what do you call the
Don't
people?
let him struggle.
The the guards, the rest of the guards. That's fine. Kyle, what do you think about Dishonored?
I don't know where you want me to go with this because
right,
I could
you
say
don't.
a
So why
lot
don't
of
you
things.
just shut the
right
hell up
now.
and let me talk about the political guards?
So basically, he comes back and there's this a huge plot to overthrow the royal empress, which he is the bodyguard to. And
Bodyguard.
you know what? Whatever.
Bodyguards.
Whatever. Anyways, so basically, he comes back at the wrong time, and he is caught in the middle of her assassination, and he is wrongfully imprisoned. But it works to their all their plans. And so basically it is about getting your vengeance on the political group that is running the city now.
But yeah, the whole basis of the story is that he wants revenge. While he's in prison, Count of Monte Corvo is given magical powers that enables him to break out. And
Wow, that was lame.
No, you mean awesome.
That was pretty
You'll be
awesome.
listening to
I'm
this
going to
later.
go with lame.
No.
I'm going to go with that.
And he's given these powers, and he's able to use them in his quest for revenge. And the power list is super robust as you start to level up. You can stop time. You can teleport through areas. What else? There's
You
a ton
can
of stuff.
see through walls.
Yeah, you can see when people are coming. You can upgrade all of your regular stats. like
Wind
your,
blast.
You can,
Yeah, that's a wind blast.
You can jump and not be hurt by falling.
Yep, I do hear that that's an ability that can be purchased.
It is. It is, in fact, an ability.
So I've got a pretty lengthy list of pros and cons for this game as well. I feel very conflicted about it, and I'll start with the positive. The game is very unique in terms of art style, in terms of playability, in terms of concept. You are given a multitude of options in any given environment, whether that be how are you going to utilize your powers when you're attacking these people? Are you going to kill all the people that you encounter? Are you going to try to not be seen at all? Are you going to do non-stealthy takedowns? And I would say that on the bigger maps, there's probably a dozen different ways that you can accomplish your mission and they're all fairly unique. Another good thing about it is the art style, although it comes off as kind of cartoony, I felt like still was an interesting approach.
Felt like it looked pseudo cell shaded without all the hard edges, like kind of a watercolor or a pastel kind of.
It reminded me.
World.
Probably the gayest.
It
thing I've ever heard in
reminded
my
me.
life.
I don't feel like that's appropriate, Patrick.
It
or
reminded me a
necessary.
lot
You're not
like
appropriate.
That's fair.
like a BioShock kind of a feel, but it also had
It looks a lot like Infinite.
yeah, it looks a lot like BioShock Infinite, but it also had kind of a first person Assassin's Creed mixed with a little bit of Mirror's Edge. I think we can get into that a little bit later, but
I'll bite on the Mirror's Edge. It does have quite a bit of that.
it's got
definitely
more of
borrows
a
a
Mirror's
lot,
Edge
yeah.
feel
Definitely
rather
bites.
than a look to it.
The game that it actually reminds me the most of in terms of playing and art is actually a PlayStation 2 title called Mark of Kree. Mark of Kree had a similar, very colorful, very not almost borderline cartoony looking atmosphere, but there's a really heavy emphasis on stealth and not being spotted. And if you are, you can only kind of handle yourself against a certain number of enemies.
Which I've got a whole thing on that whole stealth. If we're getting into that now, I feel like we're going to dwell on it for a while.
Well, the thing about Dishonored that is kind of upsetting is, first of all, if you don't play it in a very stealthy format, if you just kind of go in guns a-blazing, that's how I play every game pretty much.
And it is very, very catered to that. All the powers it seems like the stronger powers you get are catered to you actually inflicting violence.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's an entire weapon set based on sabotaging things to kill all the other guards.
and the stealth just feels so flat in comparison. I mean, it is by far the most boring thing you can do, but the game just... I don't know. It caters to you taking the route of being violent and causing chaos throughout the entire
And then they
area.
punish you for taking that route because the game is extraordinarily short. I mean, I don't know what I don't know if anybody else has beat it besides me, but I probably clocked in at under 6 hours.
Yeah, it's really short if you do kill people, just because you can just run straight through the levels, just stab somebody in the throat, throw a grenade, and continue on. If you're very stealthy about it, you have to find a way to get up on the roof. You got to run across the roof. You got to try and drop down into a specific room and not be seen. And if you're seen, then if you don't want to kill people, you have to run away and not die. And at some points, it can be pretty chaotic with 10 different guards chasing you down, shooting you with pistols. It can get pretty challenging.
Even then, if you're caught, it still penalizes you because the guards, their friendly fire is actually on. So when you're running away and they're shooting at you, they can actually shoot each other and cause deaths in the game that affect your entire
The overall ending of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that that's very aggravating. Like they put so much stuff in front of you, and then they basically punish you for using the utilities that they've given you.
And that's not to say that any of them are bad. I mean, the things you can do in it are actually really cool and really neat and ingenuitive.
Absolutely,
and,
yeah.
The game, like the play on it is very fluid. You always feel very in control of your character. The only one I kind of have a problem with is the blink, and it's just because sometimes it seems like it'll work and then it doesn't. But
the teleport move is definitely broken to a certain extent. It's very hard to get it precisely the way you need it in the situations that they put you in.
So sometimes you'll be 2 feet away from something where you could easily blink, and it won't let you jump onto like a roof or jump over a certain barrier. But then other times when you're out in a free open area, you can jump, I don't know, 500-600 feet and just teleport right there. But those little moments when you're trying to escape a guard or just try and find a stealthful way to get into a specific situation, it can be almost impossible at those
it does
2
seem
foot
to get
jumps.
very, very clunky when you need to use it.
Yeah. I do like how the multiple objectives are lined out, though. Like if you are playing in a violent way, there are different rewards based on how you conquer that, and there's different ways to like strike at your enemy. You can sabotage them so they don't know you're there. You can do stealth kills. You can go right in and kind of kill everybody. So I see what they were going for, but it's almost like they spent so much time developing all these alternate pathways and alternate outcomes that they forgot that the game was going to be ultimately very short. And I hate to use the word disappointing because at the end of the game I still felt like I'd enjoyed it, but if I had paid $59.99 for this game, I would flip tables over. I'd be so mad because I knocked it out in less than a day or less.
I was very disappointed in everything about it, just because everything you heard about it leading up from all the people that had played it before it came out, all the news about it always said it was going to be this groundbreaking.
Some review sites gave it 9s, 10s.
Well, not even that. I just meant like as far as it was going to be this new groundbreaking thing that was going to be unlike anything you'd ever seen before. And all I feel like is it's the original BioShock with a different polish on it.
Yeah.
You have 2 options, whether you want to go the evil or the good side, and you get an outcome, an ending based on what you do there. You have a very, very huge storyline that you can get more in depth into by reading the books that are around, by reading the audio or listening to the audio logs that are all around. And you also run a first-person shooter that relies heavily on power-based options. It just feels like everything that they've done in this game was a rehash of something I'd played before.
I think if you're wanting a really good story, if you can take the time to find all those audio logs, find all those books, which books, there are just plethoras of books. They're everywhere. You can pick them up. If you take the time to actually read all of those and just immerse yourself in the story, there is a really deep story there rather than, hey, you're framed for a murder and you're going to get revenge.
The story is really good behind it. I'm not saying that. I don't feel like the character development was done very well with some of the people that you constantly come in contact with.
I mean, I couldn't tell you anything about Corvo.
Yeah, and
I don't even know the other part of his name. Is his first name Corvo?
He's not looked into at
Corvo
all.
Atano.
They
Corvo
give no
Atano.
backstory on him whatsoever. So he is the most mundane central character to this plot-thick story. I mean, it is... To have an antagonist that you tell nothing about doesn't get a character or a player engrossed in a game where they have to follow a story.
Corvo Atano sounds like a bad 80s band. Sorry.
Either way, they try to get you to care about everything, and they definitely make it to where if you want to go around and kill everything, then you have all the powers and ability to do so. But to do stealth, it just feels like it is so unrewarding. I mean, you can only go up behind so many guards and choke them out and then drag their body away before you are completely bored with the game. And you get the good ending for that game. It really does feel like what Greg said. They're punishing you for using everything that you have the ability to use.
Yeah, I think the biggest setback is when you're actually trying to kill people like I was. When I first started playing it, other than the intro stage, I just killed everybody that I could see. I would kill civilians. I would even look down at the rats and just try and chop them up. But the repetitiveness of the kill actions, you stab somebody in the throat, you stab somebody in the neck, you swing your sword a couple times. I mean, it just, there weren't as many animations as I thought would have been rewarding for a chop 'em up, kill 'em kind of game.
It did feel like a game that should have been way more epic based on what you could do in it, but it is so repetitive and mundane that you just get so bored by the end of each chapter. I mean, I found, like, at the beginning of the game, I wanted to play it nonstop. And towards the middle of the game, which obviously the game not being very long, wasn't a very long time from that, I was so bored. I couldn't change up the gameplay because it would completely screw up the ending. So I had to keep on repeating what I was doing and repeating what I was doing and choking a guard out, which is the same animation every time. The sound effects weren't even different. They had about 3 or 4 different character reactions to you choking them out. And every single time it was the same thing over and over and over.
And you guys hated on Resident Evil.
I know, right? They cut a lot of corners. They build it up to be a really original IP. I don't feel like they really delivered on that. And I say this with the acceptance that it is being reviewed phenomenally well. I can't find a bad review for it.
And to its credit, it's not a bad game. It really isn't. It just has certain things that it needed to improve on to be that game that everybody's reviewing it as.
Yeah, it's hard for me to stack this game up against something like Borderlands 2.
Well, obviously Borderlands 2 is an exception. That's a phenomenal game.
Well, let me give you a bad review on it.
Go for it, Pat.
I don't care about this character. I think the story is very mediocre. The environments are not stunning. The controls are terrible. I don't know how many times I tried to sneak up on a guard and then blast him with my loud-ass pistol.
That is true. Every time I tried to sneak up on a guard,
exactly,
I blocked with my back trigger.
I was not sucked in. It was overly hyped. I don't understand the appeal to this game at all.
Did you find any good things about it?
No.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not
one good thing.
Wow, even I said something nice about Resident Evil.
It wasn't cool that you could just run up and stab somebody in the throat. I mean,
I've done that before.
Come on.
Oh, have you?
It
in
really
real life?
does.
Not in real life.
It really does feel like a rehash of a bunch of games I've played before.
Oh, I'd love to. No, but this whole I've been framed, now I have to prove my innocence, or I'm so pissed off that I have to go and kill everybody that framed me, it's been done.
The story is pretty, when you really just look at the bare bones of it, it is pretty standard. I mean, there's no...
And it's hard to actually care about it with the lack of depth in any character.
Yeah, I mean, Corvo himself doesn't say anything. He has very minimal interactions with other people.
Yeah.
Even the people that give you the missions and try and talk to you about what's actually going on.
I think the worst part about that...
I don't care about any of
the worst part about that is they will actually direct questions at you, and your character doesn't respond. So it's just like they read your mind, like, "Oh, I'm gonna go do this mission." Good for you,
Or
Corvo.
if he ever does have a response, it's that little 3-word positive or agreement or 3-word negative disagreement. I mean, it is.
I just meant in normal conversation, like, "Hey, Corvo, I need you to go get something for me. Can you go get that?" And he's just like,
Yeah, he just walks off.
he just walks away.
Not to mention that some of the things they count as actual levels are just so pathetic.
I was going to get into that.
It is just preposterous for them to even count that.
The official strategy guide lists that there are 11 missions for Dishonored. What they don't tell you until you actually start getting into it is that there are levels that have no combat. They're just in between levels where you're getting your next actual mission, and they're counting those as missions.
There's about 3 or 4 that I've already played.
The tutorial is level
they're
1.
5 minutes long. I mean,
they're nothing. You just go in and get your missions, then you move on.
Yeah.
I mean, you could kill the time, I guess, like we're looking around for rings and stuff in the area, or other
even
power
then,
ups.
you've got the heart that shows you the right.
They really-
Well, sometimes that heart doesn't really help you. It's like, hey, this is 3 meters below you, but how the fuck do you get down there?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, the heart is a weapon that you're given very early on in the game, and it shows where most of the collectibles are at. It apparently has a secondary ability to tell you what people are thinking, or
Yeah, more of an in-depth
I'd
story.
never use that.
That's important.
What do I care what he's thinking? I'm going to kill him.
I think I used it twice just to see what it did, and then it was just so ridiculous.
He's
that I
thinking,
just
"Oh
put it
shit!
in
I
my
hope
inventory.
nobody
It's
doesn't
a pain
drop
in the
down
ass
and
that
kill
you
me."
actually have to equip it.
Yeah. So it does have a very it's got a very borrowed BioShock vibe.
I didn't mind the inventory, the smaller inventory where you just press on the D-pad in a
just the
particular direction and
inventory
it'll bring
wheel.
up your quick spot.
Yeah, overall, I thought the controls were perfectly fine. It has some bugs in general, but nothing that was like game breaking for me. And I've certainly played enough of those in my time to know when a game is just completely unplayable. Some other notes about Dishonored that may make or break it for you. You do have a lot of upgradable stuff. You can upgrade your weapons abilities, your powers. Also have 2 levels that can go up. So there's a very robust character amplifier.
But don't even worry about that if you're going to be playing stealth, because you won't use 90% of them anyway.
Actually, I think a really fair comparison is that they gave you all these things, and you're supposed to upgrade based on the way that you're playing the game. However, ultimately, there's a lot of the powers and abilities are kind of multi-purpose. Like if you're upgrading your shotgun, or not your shotgun, but like a crossbow or whatever, then it's going to help you on almost all facets except for the non-lethal kill. Now, stack that in comparison to a game like Deus Ex Human Revolution that has the exact same concept, but you power up your abilities and you're doing it in a very specific manner where if you buy stealth abilities, it does have a legitimate perk for when you're doing a stealth playthrough. A game that can be played both ways, but isn't required to play either way to have. It doesn't affect the ending. It's just more for your pleasure than anything else.
Talk about a character that was a colossal douche.
Hey man, we're not going to knock on Deus Ex.
Sorry, wrong review.
Not in this house. That Funk built. So what else about Dishonored?
You get eaten alive by fish.
Oh, that can become a huge.
I'm a
barrier.
master assassin, and I can't kill a fish.
You can't swing your sword underwater.
No.
You could at least poke it away. Holy shit!
You can take the form of it though.
Well, yeah, but the biggest problem I found, like I would be trying to do a stealth kill or a stealthy entrance, so I didn't have any of the tall boys shooting flaming incinerary arrows at me, just killing me every single time. I would try and swim in the water, and then I'd have 8 fish biting my ass, and I just can't get out of the water.
I imagine you trying to be
killed.
stealthy and being like, "Ow!"
I had
ow,
a summer like that once. Tall boys everywhere, fish biting my ass.
Oh. Jeez. Wow.
We'll start my own podcast.
God, I hope so.
Of course, there's no multiplayer, but I mean, I couldn't really see a lot of multiplayer.
I wouldn't
aspects
subject
in
anyone
this.
I know to play that game.
Oh man.
Wow.
Oh.
I know what I said.
I think we all know
Overall, I think this is definitely worth a play. I bought it and I love the game. And the first time I played it, I went through just trying to kill everybody. And I liked it enough to where I think I would go all the way through and try and play it stealthy. So it's worth a buy for me. I don't know about everybody else in the group.
I wouldn't say that this is a purchase simply because it's a really, really short game. I honestly can't imagine even doing a stealthy playthrough and it taking longer than 8 hours, and really that's 90% you waiting to reload the scenario that you just failed. You have to pretty much save after every single combat, or any little mistake that you can possibly make. And then if you do fail, God forbid, because the reload time is in the 30 to 45 second range, which doesn't sound bad initially. But you have to remember
do it like 30 times.
But you're looping it. Yeah, I mean you can load up and mess up in under 15 seconds and have to reload immediately again. So I would say that this is a rental, especially since you could probably knock it out overnight if you're a hardcore gamer, or over the weekend even if you're just a casual gamer. God forbid, if you don't play it stealthy, you could probably knock it out over tea.
Over tea.
Yeah, man. Don't people still do that? This is for the British listeners out there.
It was an initial buy for me because I was really looking forward to the game. I thought it was going to be something that it wasn't, and it will definitely be a one playthrough and then a trade-in or a selling of my copy. It will not be another playthrough. I would not go through everything that I've already went through to play it again to see the other ending. I'll YouTube it.
Do not buy this game. Do not rent this game. Take your $60, buy yourself a night, and stab yourself if you're thinking about playing this game.
Don't
play
let your children
Borderlands
play
2.
this game. Don't let friends play Dishonored.
You will dishonor yourself by playing this game.
The one thing I will want to say, I have two things
for you
actually.
to
The
say.
first is that if you've seen the trailer for this game, don't be misled, because the trailer was the thing that kind of suckered me in as well. I don't think the trailer conveys any sort of stealth play at all.
No, not at all.
Which was very disappointing when I got my hands on it. However, if you're the type of person that likes those type of games, I'm talking about like the older Splinter Cells, the Metal Gear Solids,
Thief.
and
I am a huge Metal Gear fan, and I wouldn't even put them in the same
But
class.
the difference there is in Metal Gear, you have a chance to, if you get spotted, you can eliminate the person and get away. There's a lot of sensibilities
you can
applied
do that
to it.
in here. It just
It's just, well, no, because a lot of times if they have a hint that you're there, that fails that part of the non-being seen.
well, I mean, if you're going for the trophies or achievements, yeah. But if you're
This
just
game is
playing the
crap.
game,
Yeah. Also, the other thing, having seen one of the endings, I'll tell you that there's really not a lot of reason to put any effort into the others. The ending I was completely spoiler free, but the ending was very thrown together, very disappointing, almost not animated at all.
would you say it was dishonorable?
I would not say that because you just did, and I like to have my own original shitty jokes. So I would say it's very Resident Evil. No, wait. So that's pretty much it. Yeah, there are our two mostly negative reviews this week. We're going to do our best to be back in 2 weeks. We're going to have a very special session since there's not a lot coming out until the 30th with Assassin's Creed. So feel free to join us then. We want to thank everybody for tuning in again and supporting us and helping us when we need it. You guys are the best, and we appreciate you listening to us.
Miss you, Stormy.
Bye, Stormy.
This is Strategy Guides. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Dishonored sucks.
And a special thanks to John Murray for our theme music.